On the third episode of the My Story podcast, we are speaking to TATIANA CALDERON. Now, she has a very interesting route up to where she is today, from karts in the late 2000s to racing a Kia and then jumping over to America into single-seaters for the first time. She then decided to move over to Europe and take on the Formula 3 European Championship before moving over to GP3 a few years later. Last year she competed in the Formula 2 Championship, and this year she's racing in Super Formula over in Japan and also taking on the European Le Mans Championship in a full female squad. Thanks again TATIANA for her time. It was a really interesting chat. So, enjoy. So, TATIANA, let's go from the very beginning. How did you get into motorsport? I hear that your parents back in the day owned a car dealership. Was that part of the reason?
Hi Alex, nice to speak to you. Well, actually, my dad was always a big fan of motorsports, but he never had the chance to race. He bought my sister a motorbike when she was 6, and then we sort of always had this in the blood, this racing. But it was really when my sister took me to a rental go-kart track when I was 9 that I really found my real passion. But I think my dad was a huge part as well, because I used to drive on his legs when I was very little. So it all comes from back there, I think.
So it started early. Maybe let's speak about your early career then, because maybe it's just from Europe, but it seems like there wasn't a massive motorsport scene in Colombia. Obviously, there were drivers like Juan Pablo Montoya, but how was it in those early years? Was it quite little amount of people doing it?
Yeah, I think I was lucky because my passion started right when Montoya was sort of in IndyCar, and he was starting to move to Formula 1. So his dad brought the first sort of professional karting series to Colombia, and it was called Easy Kart, and that's where sort of my sister and I we started competing. We begged my parents to buy the go-kart, and I think honestly people were so into Formula 1 those days. When Montoya was there, everybody was waking up early to watch those races, and we were too. So I think it made the sport grow, but it's never been such a popular sport back in Colombia. It's more soccer and other sports.
I was looking through the Colombian drivers that have made a professional career in motorsport. A lot of them race in the USA. Was that ever something you thought about? Because early on in your career you did do a little bit over there.
Yes, I mean, I have to be honest, and I always had in my mind to go to Formula 1. But of course, because my karting career sort of internationally started in the US, and I actually loved the country, and I knew the culture and some of the tracks. I started in Pro Mazda back then, and I had really good opportunities to keep myself busy in Indy Lights and hopefully IndyCar one day. But my parents were not really keen on ovals. My family doesn't really like it because they think it's very dangerous. And I mean, I'm not a huge fan of ovals, but I would love to do Indy 500 one day. But I think I need to convince them first.
Yeah. Even though you've got to the stage when you're driving Formula 1 cars, you still need to convince them to do a race.
Exactly. They actually they much rather see me in a Formula 1 car than in an oval, even though you will be going slower in a Formula 1 car probably. But yeah, I mean, security and safety is improving every day, so I'm hoping that that I can make exactly.
If we go back to karting, if that's all right, I've heard, I think in a story you've mentioned elsewhere, some of the male drivers weren't too happy that you were beating them in karts. Is that true?
It is. I mean, I remember that was my first national race, and it was many drivers knew that I didn't know. They didn't know me. and one of the dads told them like, oh, if this girl with loads of hair, because I was like had loads of hair, I will buy you I don't actually know how to say it in English, but yeah, like the fake hair,
Oh,
long
okay, like
hair,
a wig.
a wig. And if and I ended up winning, and he had to like really just eat his words, and it's a great feeling. But I always, you know, the dads and the guys, whenever I beat them, they were more sad than if it was another boy.
Wow, that's quite an interesting story. Apparently, early on, even in go-karts, your mother didn't want you to continue. Apparently, she thought it was too dangerous. How did you convince her that this was something you really wanted to do?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say my mom was she wanted me to try tennis and golf and many other sports. But obviously she was not at first a fan of racing, but she saw this drive and this passion, and that I loved it so much that, to be honest, was not so difficult to convince her, because she could see the love that I had for the sport. So I'm very thankful that I had this education, and that my parents were really trying to please me, in a sense of, okay, what do you want to do? If you do it well, and you take responsibility for the school and everything that you do, and you organize your time, you're free to do whatever you like. And this was racing, so I'm actually very lucky to have this type of education, and my parents that have supported me all the way.
And thankfully you've made a great career out of it now, so they made the right decision back then. So if we look back to the karting days, does the fact that you're winning races, winning championships, does the fact that you're a female get brought up more or less, or is it just you're a racing driver?
Well, obviously, the gender is a big part of who I am and what I've done, but I always tried to that people see me as a racing driver, regardless of my gender. But it's something that I cannot change, and we do things differently. We think differently. We feel in a different way, and I think we get the lap time also in a different way. We need the car, the adjustments. Everything is different. So I think it just shows that motorsport is a sport where we can compete in equal terms, and that being a woman, I mean, it has its strengths and its weaknesses like everything, but I think we can compete at the highest level. So for me, it's always been about reaching the highest level of motorsport, that is Formula One, and that I've been and that people treat me the same as everybody else, just knowing that I need different things to go quick.
Your first race was actually in a Kia Picanto, so that's slightly different to some of the other drivers out there. What was the reason for that? Was it tied into your parents driving and dealing with the Kias?
Yes, so actually, because in Colombia, sadly, we don't have any like single-seater championship that you could start to learn something from. So we only had like these touring cars, and the schools that gave you the license there was also done in touring cars. So it naturally, having a Kia dealership did help make things a little bit easier in that sense. We had like mechanics and engineers sort of from my dad's office, but it was like the natural way to go racing in a car. So I think that's why we took this road and not like conventional single-seater F4 type of thing. But I think it was quite good that I had the experience, and I drove there before I got my license. Like I was driving with 15 or 14,
Wow.
so that was quite good actually.
So it prepared you for the road.
Absolutely, and believe me, if you drive in Bogota, you can drive anywhere in the world. It's crazy.
So if we go back to the racing, you did eventually get into single seaters. You did some racing in the United States in the Star Mazda Championship. How did you find that experience? I guess it was quite different to racing in Colombia.
Yeah, I mean it was huge, and I think because I raced in the States in karting, actually one of the teams that I raced with in karting, they moved to Star Mazda, and that's how I got like my first test there. But it was a huge jump, coming from go-karts and from touring cars in a very small track in Colombia. It's like 2.5K long. So it's very, very small. You don't have any like sort of quick corners or anything. So to make that jump straight was quite shocking at the beginning. But I think I managed to learn with 2 years. So the second year was much better. I did 2 podiums and I finished 6th in the championship. So that was a big step forward, but definitely, looking back, it was a huge step.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess the times after were very big in your career, because you moved to Europe in 2012 and started racing in Formula 3 around that time as well. How big is it to sort of move halfway around the world to follow this passion to go motor racing?
Yes, so it was a tough decision as well, because it was like right by the end I was finishing school. So my parents had to take the decision to let me drive like full time, not going to university. And then I moved to Europe alone for the first time, doing my own laundry, doing like everything that your parents sometimes they take too good care of you. And it was a huge cultural change as well, the way people work here in Europe, the way things are in America. The tracks all new, the car, the team. So it was a huge change for me. It was very tough at the beginning, but as everything, the more you do it, the better you get. And sometimes you have to be patient, although sometimes you want everything now. But it did teach me to be patient. I'm still working on it, but I think it was a very, I mean, I learned a lot from those experiences.
Because you did a couple of years in European Formula 3. How different was that to racing in America? Because firstly, very different cars and very different tracks as well. I guess it took a lot of time to sort of just understand the differences.
Yeah, I mean, the communication with the team, for example, like in Star Mazda, we had for 3 cars, 1 engineer that we were sharing. Wow. And now here you have your own engineer, and it's a different way of working. Like they want to teach you how to drive sort of, and not change the car as much. And we were changing more the car back then. And is a different sort of style and different tires, and it was really difficult to understand at the beginning, and the level is extremely high, and I was just new for everything. But I think it was like my second or third year in European Formula 3 where everything started to click, and I got a good team, people that believed in me, and everything started to go much better in that direction. I think it was 2014, and that was when Max Verstappen and Esteban Ocon were racing. So it was definitely one of the toughest years of Formula 3, I would say.
You made quite a big step over to GP3 a couple of years later. How different is it being a part of a Formula 1 race weekend? I guess there's a lot more people looking at you and, maybe I guess judging your performances.
Yeah, I mean, once you move to that ground, firstly, you really need to know all the tracks, be on it from the minute go, and you have much less track time as well, so it increases the pressure. You have less tires. You know that F1, which is your dream and everything you've wanted to reach, is there, and you need to show that you have the potential. So it was first year, as always, is very tough. But I think it also gave me the opportunity to be where I am today. And I think if I have learned something in my career, is that you need to compete against the best to learn, to get yourself to the limit, to push yourself. And I think I've been in those scenarios where it's been really tough, but I came on top of it. I mean, I scored points. Of course, it was not such a successful season, but I think I raised my level quite a lot, and it got me where I wanted, which was to be linked with a Formula One team for the following year. So that was a very positive GP3 campaign for me.
So GP3 is seen around the world as one of the best places to learn your racecraft. And especially in that last year, you were involved in a lot of battles around the top 10. Would you say it's the best series in the world to sort of learn racecraft?
Well, I think it definitely is one of the best series to learn. I would say like the FIA F3 that I did the years before as well, where you had a little bit more track time and like 3 races per weekend. That was also, you could change the car quite a lot, gear ratios, still some of the regulations were open for development. So I think for that technical knowledge and for like racecraft was quite good. But I have to say GP3 as well, you know, with the tire management, it was a very competitive series, so you do learn quite a lot. But as I said, sometimes it takes you a little bit too long because you don't have that much track time and that many races, to be honest. But I think it was definitely very valuable for me.
And something I noticed when looking through your career results is the Formula, I think it was the World Series 3.5 Championship. You did a one-off round, but you got a podium in, you know, with very little track time. How important was that? Because obviously you'd be getting some good results around that time, but to get on the podium, I guess, was quite a special moment.
It was definitely. I think it was one of the key moments in my career for sure, because well, I was competing in GP3, but you know the 3.5 was considered one of the closest cars to Formula One, so much more demanding physically, lots of downforce, and I sort of had to prove Sauber back then, or now Alfa Romeo, that I could do the job in a Formula One car. So to just go to the last race where, you know, people are already, they know the tracks and they know the car very well. Yeah, exactly. The team, and just to show up and be on the podium was quite incredible. I think I adapted to the downforce and the car characteristics quite well. And that really did help a lot to push for that first F1 test.
I think it was great to see, because unfortunately that championship's no longer around, but the fact you go in there with so little experience and get on the podium is, I guess it's maybe one of those things, that car really suited you, didn't it? And I guess it was right place, right time, but obviously very important for your career.
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely suited me very well, but also it showed the amount of level that we had in GP3. You know, sometimes people think because you're 12th or 15th, you're not good enough. But actually, when you're giving the right car and under the right circumstances, you can be very competitive anywhere. So I think that also proved me that, you know what, the pain of going through GP3 and through the very difficult moments, it was definitely worth it, because my level was there when I needed it.
Definitely, and I suppose we have to look at Formula 2 last year. It was a tough year, but I guess the team was struggling quite a bit throughout the whole year to sort of put everything together. How did you sort of keep your head high, even though it was a challenging year and learning a very different car, especially?
Yeah, I think Formula 2 is a very tough championship. You don't have much time to change the car or to change your style to suit the car. And since the very beginning, to be honest, first time I drove the Arden car, I didn't feel very comfortable with the base setup. So that's already you're down. My engineer he resigned 2 days before the first test, so they had to find somebody.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it was definitely not a great
No
start.
idea.
Exactly. Especially coming from I did Abu Dhabi testing the year before in F2, and I was always top 5. So and I just literally I just drove the car, and it was capable of it suited me, and then I just arrived in the Arden car, and nothing sort of worked. I had no feeling, and I didn't know what to change. I think I got a little bit confused during the year, trying to change too many things on the setup. And actually, in a championship like this, you need to be more flexible and adapt with your driving a bit more. But I think I understood that very late. And again, the communication was not there with the team. So it's a real shame, because to have an opportunity to race in Formula 2 is incredible. To go to these amazing places, to be just competing hours before Formula 1 is an amazing opportunity. And I think I learned a lot, but I think there's still unfinished business there for me.
Definitely. I think it's worth noting, for a lot of us that aren't like racing drivers, especially in single seaters as well, it's always hard to tell those micro sort of details that you could finish 15th or 7th with a tiny setup change. So I guess that puts it into perspective, really, how close Formula 2 is as well. That just, I guess, being in the right team at the right time is a big thing in a single seater category like Formula 2 as well.
It's incredibly important, because motorsport is just about all these little details, and they all need to be aligned together. It's like 1 millimeter of ride height can make a huge difference of you touching when you're braking and disturbing the whole braking zone, or just getting more downforce and really using everything. So it's very important to have like a very competitive team, where that the setup is 95% when you arrive to the track, and you just fine tune, but you're comfortable and confident with it, and your engineer and your team. And that's why I think people spend so many years in Formula 2 to be able to show their potential. It's not an easy championship to just come in as a rookie. So I think that makes it even more difficult, and the fact that I actually was never really comfortable and confident, it made things very difficult for me to show the potential that I believe I have.
Some drivers in Formula 1 right now spent 4 or 5 years in GP2 or Formula 2, so sometimes it's just the way it goes. But nonetheless, you're working with the Formula 1 team now, Alfa Romeo. You've driven a Formula 1 car. I guess, looking back to where you were growing up in go-karts, that is a dream. One of the amazing things that you've checked off now over the last couple of years.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was incredible first to be linked with a Formula 1 team like Sauber, like now Alfa Romeo Racing, to get my first taste of Formula 1 in front of my family in Mexico after a Grand Prix, with the actual car of that year. It was just incredible. So it was all worth the pain of those years.
All the years.
Exactly. And it's a fantastic opportunity they have given me. They have always believed in my capabilities, and that's why I think they continue to give me these amazing opportunities. So I'm very grateful. But obviously, you always want more. So my goal is still remains to be a Formula One driver one day, and I think I'm doing as much as I can to stay in single seaters for as long as I can, and to prove that I can be a competitive driver when given the right tools.
I'd like to get on to Super Formula in a minute. I'd like to quickly speak about Sauber and Alfa Romeo though, because you're working with some big characters in the team, Kimi, Antonio and Robert. How do you find that dynamic between all of you? Because, you know, Kimi is obviously one of the most famous drivers for his personality right now.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching Kimi race against Montoya and being teammates with him, so it's very awkward just to be in that position. But I'm very grateful to, you know, when we did the presentation, I was just standing just beside Kimi. It felt unreal. And Robert as well, because I used to follow him when they raced against Montoya as well, so it's I think a great atmosphere in the team, and I've been teammates with Antonio in Formula 3, so we know each other a little bit as well, and just to have the inputs of like two generations, you know, the technical knowledge that Kimi and Robert bring as well from their experience in Formula 1, and Antonio being a rookie and still being very quick and very talented. I think it's great for me to learn the different sort of generations and what I need to know once I want to step up into that role. So I'm very grateful, and yeah, I mean, it's early stages with Robert and stuff, but I really look forward to getting to know more of them.
And what can we expect from your role in 2020? I hope more time in a Formula One car this year.
Hopefully, I mean, things are very difficult at the moment, so I think the chances will reduce quite a lot more, because everything will take priority for the race drivers, obviously. So I'm hoping that at some point we have positive news in that sense. But I think the most important thing is that the team, you know, survives everything, and that we can go racing, and I can be there also supporting.
Perfect. And for your racing yourself in 2020, you're doing Super Formula, which is quite a big change over in Japan. Did you think about moving to Japan, or is that even more of a shock to go from Colombia to Spain to Japan?
Well, I was lucky enough to find a really great sponsor that wanted to support my career in Japan as well. So that is Bandero and Koei Music, and so everything just came really end of the year, beginning of 2020, that I would have the chance to compete in such a series like Super Formula. So obviously having Super Formula and ELMS with Richard Mille Racing Team means I have to go back and forth all the time. I had never been to Japan before, so it was a bit on the unknown, but to be honest, I'm in love with their culture, with the country itself. So hopefully I'll have more chances to race there in the future as well, and to discover more of this amazing country.
And as you say, you're doing some racing in the endurance series as well. What led to that decision? Because of course that's going to make sure that you're very, very busy once we do get racing again.
Yeah, again, you know, after a tough season in F2, I had literally nothing, and I was called up for this Richard Mille Racing Team, together with other women, with the support of the FIA Women in Motorsport Commission. So I've been very grateful for that opportunity. An LMP2 car is incredible. I mean, when you compare it with F2 in race pace, they're quite similar, has quite a lot of downforce, and I think endurance as as a complete driver, you need to like really take care of your tires, the fuel. You need to adapt very quickly, and I think that can bring a lot to me as a racing driver. And of course, doing Le Mans is a dream for anybody. So I can't wait to get started. I think we have a great team and a great opportunity to do well. So I hope that we get rid of this situation that we are all living right now, and we can slowly but surely get back to racing.
Great. 2 more questions, if that's all right. The first of which was about the Super Formula cars. How different are they to the Formula 2 and Formula 1 cars you've driven now? Because as a European, I don't really have any context about what they're like, but people say they're fantastic to drive.
They are incredible. I mean, I had a big smile when I first jumped in. I think it's for sure one of the closest car to a current Formula 1 car in terms of corner speed. So I think the amount of downforce and the G-forces is quite high compared to F2. And I mean, the tires are very different, the way you have to drive them, the Yokohama to Pirelli. So it's a big adaptation that you need to do. In Super Formula, we don't have a DRS, but we have a push to pass button. In terms of power, I think I would say still the Super Formula it feels a little bit more powerful, because probably it's also a little bit lighter than an F2 car. But I think it's a great preparation if you want to go to Formula 1 or to any other series, because it's the closest car to Formula 1, I have no doubt.
Awesome. Well, we're definitely going to look forward to both of those series once we get racing again. Hopefully it's going to be a great year for you. Final sort of question was, if you could give the younger version of yourself any advice along this journey, what would that be?
Not an easy one, but I think you have to have goals and big dreams, and you need to work hard for it. And when you want something, you can achieve anything really. But I would say that you need to be patient, because not everything comes when you want it, but when you least expect it. So I would say my younger self to be more patient than what I've been actually, and to just keep dreaming and keep aiming high.
Perfect. Thanks so much for your time. Obviously, good luck for everything that goes on this year. Hopefully it won't be too much longer. But yes, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Alex. A pleasure to be with you, and hopefully we have plenty of stories to share once everything starts in 2020.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So there we are. Hopefully you enjoyed the chat with Tatiana there. Some really interesting stories in there, through karting, where people were really not a fan of her beating them, all the way up to single-seaters, getting on the podium, and obviously speaking about a tough year in Formula 2 last year. But nonetheless, new opportunities have arisen for 2020. LMP2 and also Super Formula is going to be a very chaotic calendar once we do get racing once again, but obviously wishing Tatiana the best, because it's really interesting to see the journey she has gone on to get to this point. So thank you to everyone that has tuned in. I hope you enjoyed this one. Please remember to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed, subscribe to my channel if you're new, and once again, stay safe and thanks for watching. Goodbye.